It's just quieter, more responsive when you initially take off, which is, that's quite an attractive feature. First 3 weeks in an electric car, yes, quite an experience. It's very pleasant actually, very responsive, but you can actually drive it with just the accelerator, with the, I think you call it regenerative braking, don't you?
Mm-hmm. One pedal driving.
One pedal driving, very convenient, very simple, and quite an enjoyable experience actually. It's no time at all. It's, I mean, the biggest issue is driving on the right hand side of the road when you're used to driving on the left. I always found that quite quick to come to terms with. Doesn't feel any different from a normal automatic car driving experience wise or skills levels wise. It's just quieter and as I say, more responsive when you initially take off, which is that's quite an attractive feature.
We have kept it topped up for you, but anything notable about the charging?
Yeah, that was really my only concern initially, because obviously not used to doing things in that way. Don't know how the systems work or anything, but when you showed me the charging scenario, it's easy enough to understand, and with the card it's straightforward enough to follow the instructions on the screen at the charging station. And I hadn't really been that far that I needed to charge deliberately, but I took the opportunity, just to really experience what it was like to do that. So yeah, it was no problem. I think the only issue was it really didn't, need to be charged up at that moment in time desperately. I never knew anything about idle times or anything else, but I think it had only been on charge for what, 40 minutes maybe?
Yeah, 30 or 40 minutes.
We never get away with a 30-minute stop when your mum's shopping.
Bolt has done its job for you as a local commuter. You've driven the IONIQ a little bit. Thoughts, impressions, IONIQ 5 versus Bolt EV, albeit 20 grand price delta between the two of them.
Yeah, well, the IONIQ is obviously, first and foremost, a much more comfortable car. It's a much more expensive looking car. Haven't really come to terms with all its electronic gizmos over and above the sat-nav. I've just used it in exactly the same way that I would have used the Bolt, but it's definitely more comfortable, definitely more spacious. Mm-hmm. The panoramic sunroof, that's the same as I have in my car back home, and appreciate that. I think it's rather more comfortable, and I actually on our longest trip managed to get some 40 winks in it. That's how comfortable it is. Yeah, it's I mean, it's just the Bolt is a much more, much smaller car. I think it copes with the lumps and bumps in the road a little bit better than the Bolt as well. Actually, didn't feel that the seats were in any way problematic in the current Bolt. So yeah, I've never even noticed it, to be honest.
Okay. It's one of those, some people call them torture seats, which I've never got on with, because we've done thousands of miles in it and it's been fine. It's not wonderful, lovely plush, but it's not bad, I don't think.
No, perfectly acceptable, I would say. There's one other thing about the Bolt that I found disconcerting, and that was the thickness of the front pillars, actually. They're right in your line of sight and prevent you actually seeing the apex to corners and things, which is, you have to move your head around to actually see where you're going. I found that a little bit disconcerting, but not, not all the time, just at specific, instances, really. The rear view mirror, first of all, is, quite odd, actually. you know, in the sense that it's just a picture of the back and you don't have to really adjust it, do you?
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting, and it works fine in the daylight. I think at night it's a little bit strange to get used to because of headlights. They tend to flare in the electronic rear view mirror, which I found that a little bit distracting. As far as the rear view camera is concerned, that's really a question of muscle memory. You know, I've still not really got used to that. I think it's going to be a great aid once you get familiar with it, but I still find myself looking over my shoulder and doing it in the traditional way.
And then the $1 million question, although you don't need to replace your car at the moment, electric feasible in the UK within 1 year, 3 years, 5 years?
It's not on my personal radar to invest in electric for a multitude of reasons which have nothing to do with electric vehicles themselves particularly. You know, I can see that if the economics were right, and at some point in the future, if the infrastructure was right, which I don't know as it is at the moment, we do come across chargers, but you know, as often as not we come across them out of order, covered with a hood or something, which doesn't fill you full of joy. Probably only need a small car. Certainly I've got a charging point on the drive ready-made. It would make great sense, but only if the cars themselves were affordable in comparison with a regular petrol car, I guess. When I have looked, I mean, the premium for an electric car is massive in the UK.